Thanks for joining me. My name is Sean Egglestone and I'm a registered dietitian, and today we're going to be talking about congestive heart failure. Now, I see thousands of patients every single year in the hospital, and one of the most common diet educations that I provide is for low sodium diets. So what exactly is congestive heart failure? Congestive heart failure occurs when we have a diet that's too high in salt, and our body tries to combat that by retaining water. And when we retain water, it increases our blood volume, making it harder on our heart to pump. And over time, our heart efficiency decreases. And doctors can test this when they look at something called your ejection fraction. And that's a percentage, and you want that to be above 60. However, when our ejection fraction is low and we have congestive heart failure, we actually tend to retain even more fluid. And people will often complain of shortness of breath or edema, fluid buildup in their lower extremities and their hands. And they know that because it's harder to put on their socks, tie their shoes, fit jewelry. Another way is to weigh yourself. If you put on more than 2 pounds in a day or 5 pounds in a week, you're retaining too much fluid, and that can be symptoms of congestive heart failure. Now, the primary approach for congestive heart failure is to follow a low sodium diet. So let's talk about this by food group, and then we're going to jump into label reading, and then I'm actually going to take you over to my kitchen and show you how I label read and the products that I have here at home. So the primary place where people get sodium is condiments. Things like ketchups and sauces and pickles. So condiments are really a hit or miss, and it really comes down to label reading for that. However, within certain areas of condiments, let's just say hot sauces, some hot sauces are high in sodium, like Frank Red Hot sauce. Others are very low, things like salsa, very low in sodium. So within condiments, I tend to pick a variety from different manufacturers that I enjoy, and then I flip them around and I look for the ones that are lowest in sodium. So that's really about comparing and contrasting different products, and then also staying away from the condiments that are typically high in sodium. Now, if you check out the comments down below, or I should say the description for this video, I will have a list of foods that are high in sodium. The next food group is dairy. Now, milk, not so much high in sodium, but cheese is. So the best advice for people that like cheese is to eat less cheese. Now, there's not really a low sodium cheese that I'm aware of, but using cheese as a condiment, a flavoring, things like Parmesan or sprinkling it on tacos can be a good way to reduce your cheese intake instead of cheese-based dishes like lasagnas and pizzas. So cheese contributes a fair amount of sodium to our diet. The next here we have meat. Things like processed meat is going to be the highest. Bacon, salami, deli meats, lunch meats, pepperoni. You don't want to eat that stuff anyway because it increases our risk for colon cancer. But it's also high in salt, and it's bad for our heart and can cause congestive heart failure. So choosing things like plain turkey or chicken or ground turkey or tuna can be better options than processed meat in terms of its sodium content. The next here is fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables typically don't have very much sodium at all unless they're canned. Now, when we're talking about canned products, that's, again, label reading, which we'll talk about. The next here we have is grains. I get my grains from the bulk section, things like oatmeal, brown rice, millet, barley, sorghum, the quinoa. These have no sodium in them because they're just individual products that we're buying. It's when we can also find beans in this section too, just dried beans. But when we buy these products either pre-made in bags like rice-a-roni or in cans like canned beans, then we're going to see more salt being added to these products. Also, processed foods is another huge source of sodium. Things like frozen burritos, pizzas, chips, snack foods, crackers, cookies, lots of sodium in them, as well as moderate sodium amounts in baked products like bread. So let's go ahead and jump into some label reading. Now, when I go grocery shopping, The majority of the food that I buy is individual foods, fresh or frozen vegetables, fresh or frozen fruits, grains from the bulk bin section, plain pasta like whole wheat pastas, dried beans and grains, oatmeal, minimal condiments, minimal processed foods. I like to think about picking up individual foods that one could imagine growing in their garden at home or finding at a farmer's market. But if it's made in a plant, like Cheez-Its and Doritos and snack foods and cookies, these are man-made foods, and as well as foods, meals that have already been put together and frozen. I stay away from those things. So when I look at a label, I ignore most of the numbers, but one of the numbers that I do focus on is the sodium. And I want that sodium number to be under 300 milligrams per serving. Now, it's also important to keep in mind how many servings we're having. Some products just have one serving, some have 8, 9, 10 servings. So it's important to keep in mind how much of this product you're actually eating. With that being said, under 300 is great, under 200 is even better. Now, sometimes on the front of labels, you'll see no added salt, or low sodium, less sodium, reduced sodium. Some products don't say anything at all, so I'm not going to go over the legal meaning of all of those labels, because what I recommend is that you ignore what's on the front of the product and you turn it around and you look for the milligrams and pick the products that have the lowest milligram in sodium. Now, generally speaking, low sodium products are 140 milligrams per serving or less. No added salt tends to be the lowest at 10 or 5 milligrams per serving. But some products are very low in sodium and don't say anything on the front. And I don't want you to miss out on low sodium products by only looking for products that are labeled on the front. So flip it around. Under 300 is good. Under 200 is even better. And no added salt is the best. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, if you have congestive heart failure, you should watch your salt. You should also, for some people, watch their total or free water fluid intake. Now, before I tell people to limit their fluid intake, talk with your doctor and ask them, do I need to be on a free water or total fluid restriction? For a lot of people, they're put on water restrictions in the hospital, but maybe not so much at home. But the most common is a 2 liter or half a gallon, 64 ounce fluid restriction of free water, which would just include drinking water. But there's also total fluid restrictions, which include things like Gatorades and anything that melts into a fluid like popsicles or Jello. But that's more of a, talk to your dietitian or talk to your doctor specifically about any sort of water restriction. So that basically sums up what I recommend for people with congestive heart failure. Take a look at the description and look for the foods that are highest in sodium. I pick foods at the grocery store that don't have any labels on them at all. That way I don't have to worry about added salt. But if you do buy products that have labels, remember what I said about label reading. It's also important to weigh yourself every day. When you wake up, you pee, you weigh yourself, and you can measure if you're retaining fluid. Take your Lasix, furosemide, or other water pills appropriately as prescribed by your doctor. And if you are gaining weight, call your doctor, let them know. They can adjust your medications appropriately. Now let's take a tour of my kitchen. This is my very small, messy kitchen. I am going to show you everything that I have in terms of its sodium content, just so you get a good understanding of what I look for when I'm label reading, and just an idea about basically what I keep in my kitchen. And as you can see, the kitchen's a pretty big mess right now. I just got done making a smoothie and having some bread. So it's literally, I have not set up my kitchen for this. I am completely doing this completely random. Here I've got some coffee. This is just oil and vinegar. There's no sodium in that. Now bread is a baked product, and anything that's baked, especially a risen product, is going to have some salt in it. So most breads are around 120 to 160 milligrams per slice. So they're not particularly high in sodium, but they're not particularly low either. So just keep in mind that how much bread you're consuming during the day. Plain regular oatmeal, no sodium. Coffee, no sodium. The only other foods I have foods down here. Again, looking at whole wheat pasta, the sodium 0 milligrams. So that's the only thing. And if you're not sure, and you also want to check the ingredients, organic whole wheat durum flour. It doesn't say salt, so there's no salt in this product. Now, here we come to a product. Now, this is more than one ingredient. If there's more than one ingredient, it's going to have salt. This says nothing about salt on the front, but when we turn it around here, it's going to have 450 milligrams of sodium. So keep in mind, you get 2,000 milligrams per day, which is about 600 per meal. So I just make sure that when I cook with this, I'm going to have some pasta, so there's no sodium in that. I'm going to measure this out. This is going to be a half a cup, and it's going to have 450 milligrams of sodium, which we see right there. And then I'm going to add some vegetables and maybe a little bit of tofu. So basically most of the sodium from the meal is going to come from this sauce, and that's about it. Here we have, I like to make, what is this? Cranberry sauce. I don't do all the shopping in this house. Sodium, 10 milligrams, perfect. Sometimes we get products that say no added salt. Those are going to be the lowest. So there's going to be 5 milligrams of sodium right there. We have a variety of other beans. Most of the time, I make my beans from scratch, but apparently my fiance got some beans on sale. Coconut milk, sodium, 20 milligrams. Sometimes instead of, I dilute that out when I make pasta or lasagna, and I use products like this, crushed tomatoes, that have 80 milligrams of sodium. So I dilute out the sodium by using other products similar that don't have any salt at all. Here's another product, organic tomato paste, 20 milligrams of sodium. So remember, this doesn't say anything about sodium on the front, but it is low in salt. I mean, we can just keep going. This enchilada chili sauce, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking this is going to be high in sodium, okay? Because it's more than one ingredient. So let's take a look. Under the ingredients, I see salt right down there. 360 milligrams. So this is considered a high sodium product because it's higher than 300. However, if you stick to quarter cup for your meal and you make sure that every other food in your meal is very low in salt, this can work for you. I bring these backpacking. We do not eat these on a regular basis. These have actually been in here for some time now. Sodium per package, per pouch. Sodium is 800 milligrams. So something like this, I would split so per serving, 2 servings per container, 390. So I'll split this with my fiance over some brown rice and some extra vegetables and some beans, and I'll get about 400 milligrams for a dinner with this if I split it. But don't eat the whole thing. Pumpkin. This is 100% pure pumpkin. That's it. Look at the ingredients. Pumpkin. That's it. So this is going to have no sodium in it. 5 milligrams. This is my spice and herb drawer. So here we just have popcorn, we have brown sugar, we have nutritional yeast, we have quinoa, we've got brown rice. So all of these products that you get at the grocery store aren't going to have any sodium. Mixed beans, lentils, and then for spices and herbs, we buy everything separate. Cinnamon, garlic, more garlic. We've got cumin, we've got pepper, we have salt, we have vanilla. These are all individual spices. So if I want salt, I'll add salt while I'm cooking. But I'm not going to buy garlic salt or other seasoning packets that have salt added to them. Now, when I find a product like this, that's going to have salt in it. So when I come up here, sodium, 90 milligrams. Not that bad, actually. What in the world? Did she pull these out of the trash? I threw these out the other day. I told her not to buy this stuff. Jeez, okay. Sodium. 320 milligrams for 1 tablespoon, but there's 9 servings in here. And you're darn right you're going to use that whole thing. So, you got 3,000 milligrams of sodium in this stuff. This stuff. Do not buy this stuff. I have thrown these out. She must have gone out and gotten more. Look at this. 6 servings, 1,300 milligrams. All of this. Do not buy these seasonings. These have way too much sodium in them. So I actually you go through here. You got to live with someone that supports your goals, because if you don't, you come home just that kind of stuff. So just, keep that in mind when, you're living with someone, that you want to make sure that everyone's on the same health goals, that they're not bringing home fast food, they're not bringing home high sodium stuff, frozen stuff, that they're sharing in your journey to be healthy. Now, with that being said, we do not use those salt packets, seasoning packets very often, but they are there. But I try not bring them home, because if they're here, you're going to be likely to use it. Now, let's just wrap up here. In my freezer, no frozen meals, okay? None. There's just fruits, dog treats, frozen berries, more frozen vegetables. There's a pie crust, some bread, more berries, more vegetables, avocados, strawberries. So that's it, frozen, but they're all individual products. So I know there's no salt in any of this stuff, because it's just all one ingredient. This is my messy fridge. Jesus. I'm not going to spend an hour going over every one of these products, but these soups back here, these are great. These are actually low sodium. These are by Supergirl, creamy sweet potato. These are all vegan, and the sodium on it is, 360, so per 1 cup. So I can split this with my partner, and I won't go over my sodium for the meal. Again, we can just go over all of these products. Where's the sodium? 35. Peanut butter. I try and get this without salt, but typically it's not that high in salt. 100 milligrams. Almond milk. What do we got? 150. We got some leftovers. We got a whole bunch of vegetables that we make. Here's some pasta. There's some more vegetables. We just have a bunch of fruit. Our vegetable crisper is looking pretty bare, because I just cooked with all the vegetables last night. We have some mushrooms back here. So other than this Panda Express that got brought home, these things, I actually recommend these. If you like hot dogs, but you're vegan, plant-based hot dogs, they taste just like a regular hot dog. There's 14 grams of protein, and check out the sodium on these things. Sodium, 470. So they're actually kind of high, but they're not as bad as, they're not 600. But in any case, again, not a product I purchased. That was brought home by the other person I live with. This stuff here is where the sodium is going to happen, okay, guys? The condiments. I'm not going to go over all the condiments, but just keep in mind, you need to read the labels, look at the sodium, and keep in mind how much you're actually using, because that's where the salt is coming from. So this was kind of embarrassing, going over my whole kitchen. I didn't clean out. I didn't prep anything. This is what's in the house. But that's what I look for when I'm shopping low sodium. If you have any other questions, post and leave comments down below. Don't forget to check out my website, SeanTheRT.com, and you can contact me, as well as watch some of my other nutritional videos if you're interested. Cheers.